And if you ask the best couples, like the couples that we look at and admire, be like, I want a marriage like theirs. And if you ask them, what's your secret? They all say the same thing. It's hard work and we do the work. And I don't know anybody in friendship who says friendship is hard work and we do the work. And so I think one of the reasons we have so much disconnection in the world is we actually are not very good at the skill of being a friend. You know, would you cancel on a friend for a meeting, or would you cancel on a meeting for a friend?
What does it take to stop chasing happiness and start living with deeper purpose? In this best of episode of My Legacy, hosts Martin Luther King III, Arndrea Waters King, Marc Kielburger, and Craig Kielburger explore the power of fulfillment, how to find it, how to share it, and how to build a life around it. You'll hear Simon Sinek with a special peek of Season 2 on why fulfillment isn't a destination, it's something you build. Mel Robbins on escaping the happiness trap and learning to find meaning in the everyday. Jay Shetty on creating connection in the chaos of everyday life. And Martin Sheen on the joy he saw in the campaign trail and the hope he still sees in people, no matter how dark the world gets. But first up, Dr. Sanjay Gupta on the science behind feeling good, starting with a shift to the way you think, not just the way you live.
So in a culture that is so focused on, chasing happiness, we often overlook what truly makes life fulfilling. So in your view, what creates a life of real fulfillment?
I'll make my answer very simple. I feel like I got really lucky in life. And I don't know that I deserved it, but I got lucky. I have a great life. And I think my fulfillment is to constantly be a source of good energy for people.
Wow.
To just
It
walk
shows.
into every situation, every interaction, and sharing good energy is a really powerful thing. It's not as objective as money or something like that, but just to bring good energy to someone's life. And because I was blessed with it, and so I want to give it away. I also think, as I talked about in the book, that there is a component of reciprocal altruism there. It feels good to do good. This seems almost anti-evolutionary in a way, because it was always the survival of the fittest and everything. So, got to keep mine, but yet we evolved as humans to feel good when we did good. Like, where did that come from? And it's true. I think everybody would agree. Anybody that if you do something nice for somebody, you actually feel really good about it. And so that's it for me. I don't think a lot again about legacy, but the idea that genuinely bring good energy into every situation, make people feel good around you, take the time to listen. Empathy is not a weakness. Empathy is sometimes seen as a weakness nowadays. When did that happen? It was always a strength when I was growing up, but now it's almost seen as a weakness. So change that narrative.
Well said. You've written and spoken extensively about longevity and aging. And you've said something we love, that if you could go back and talk to your younger self, you would talk about two really critical things. One is take time to talk to people from older generations. Really cool. And two, attitude matters. So can you just explain to us a little bit about why those two reflections are so important?
Yeah. I think when it comes to talking to people of older generations, I think there's a sense that you have to experience many of these things yourself. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. One of my favorite books is Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. And I think to distill that message down, it's like there are a lot of lessons to be learned in life, but some of them you just have to learn yourself. You have to go through the experience to learn it yourself. People can tell you, but it can't really be taught. You have to experience. But for a lot of other things, there are hacks, I feel like, things that my dad probably thought of at the exact same age that I was thinking of, or my grandfather. And instead of saying, hey, look, let me just, fumble the ball and make the mistakes, like, can I just ask them, what did you prioritize at this point in life? When did you start to shift your priorities? How did you save money? Just whatever it might be, from very practical things to more philosophical things, I think was really important. I also found that it made me feel good to have those conversations with them, and it made them feel good. This is this component of reciprocal altruism. We have a lot of knowledge about our own personal biology now, and I think the idea that we think about affecting our biology through extraneous methods, through pills that you take, medications, procedures, things like that. One of the really interesting sort of revelations in science is that we can actively change our biology by our thinking. And we kind of thought that if you're optimistic, you're going to feel better, you're going to heal better, you're going to recover more quickly from things. We kind of knew that, but now we can measure it. And we can see cells changing. We can see the increase in tumor necrosis factor, cells that bust cancer cells, that boost your immune system, purely by thinking about it. And so attitude matters. Attitude matters. It matters when it comes to pain, when it comes to recovery from things. Pain is a big one because we can't really measure pain. And yet we know two people who have the exact same injury, like bang your hand with a hammer. Two people that have the exact same insult to their hand, if the more optimistic person with a better attitude, is going to feel less pain and recover more quickly.
Wow. We're talking a lot about, the four of us, the question of happiness versus fulfillment and how we need to live a life of fulfillment. And, the Western concept of happiness often is the next thing and, the next toy or the bigger car or the bigger job title or the corner office. But that doesn't fill us up, just in terms of what do you have in your heart and that fulfillment that you find yourself in. Because of everybody we've ever met in Hollywood, we've met a lot of people, you're the most grounded, loving, caring, engaged person we've ever met.
Actors are always dependent on somebody liking them, approving of them. So you work or we spend so much of our lives, not just actors, but a lot of people, striving to be loved. And that's only because we don't realize that we have to learn to love ourselves and all the human things about us. And that, that image of seeing the light in other people. I was on the campaign trail for nearly 3 weeks and going into a lot of very, isolated places. They sent us where, the Kamala and some of the big candidates couldn't go because, they draw such crowds, but they can only do so much. So we were sent in areas where nobody went, and the people were just on fire. And the 3 weeks were just so satisfying and hopeful. I was absolutely certain she was going to win, and she did win, because her whole campaign reflected the character of the nation, not its bitterness, its darkness, its fear, its anger. It reflected the joy. That was the first word that came out of her campaign, was joy. And I saw it everywhere we went, and I was in the battleground states, so-called, and man, there's a lot of darkness. But when I was doing door knocking in some areas, and we were running into people with the opposition sign on their homes and their cars. There was just that spark of, what's drawing you here? Why are you doing this? And they clearly wanted what these people had, these volunteers, these young people who were so inspired and were canvassing, So I saw a lot of that, and I was grounded in the. I think we know ourselves when we see ourselves. You see someone that reflects you in a way that draws you to them. You cannot be yourself and not see yourself in others. It happens all the time. That image of seeing the light coming from people.
Martin, as we wrap up, there is no way to bring more inspiration and to bring a little dose of hope than with a classic President Bartlet moment. And many people are feeling a little overwhelmed, a little bit hopeless. And so I'd be curious, what would President Bartlet say to rally them back at this time?
Well, I would refer to a great friend of Gandhi, was Rabindranath Tagore. We are called to lift up this nation and all its people to that place where the heart is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depths of truth and tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sands of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action into that heaven of freedom, dear Father. Let our country awake.
The cool thing about the distinction that I'm going to share with you is that it comes from someone's research. And the person I'm going to cite is Dr. Tal Ben-Shahar, one of the kind of original rock star happiness professors at one of the Ivy League schools. And he has this concept that I love, because happiness, what we get wrong about it is we believe that there is a thing out there that will make you happy all the time. And the problem with that is once you get the thing, your happiness or your excitement or enthusiasm, whatever you call it, just disappears right away because you got the thing. And we have this relentless need to feel good. So we're constantly looking out there and we think, well, maybe the car, or maybe, it's the boyfriend or the girlfriend, or maybe it's a certain dollar in the bank, or maybe it's a certain number on the scale, or it's a certain friend group or whatever. That is going to create this feeling inside me that I so not only want, but you actually deserve to feel good in your life. But we're going about it wrong. And so he basically says, anytime you want something out there, it's like staring at the sun. If you look directly at the sun, just like you look directly at your bank account and say, I'm going to be happy if I have $1 million in that bank account, you're going to get sunspots and you're going to be blinded. And you're going to be miserable as you're trying to get it, because you're going to think you're only going to feel good once you get there. Instead, he says, I want you to take the sun and put it through a prism. And it creates a rainbow. And when you realize that that's what's available to you right now, that's what you can bring into your life right now. That it's not really out there, it's all the things that you can take in and bring in here that truly create fulfillment.
What would you offer to people that are feeling that fear, that disconnection, the overwhelm, the stress?
The first thing that came to mind for me is whenever I feel like things are out of my control, or I feel like overwhelmed at what's happening around me or even in our own life, there's this, every time I feel like it's just me, the problem feels really difficult to handle. But as soon as I think the problem is me plus God, or me plus the universe, or something that has a much higher power than I do, it starts to feel a little bit more manageable. And so I find that prayer for me has always been such a beautiful place to come to when all other hope feels lost. I think I get a lot of solace in prayer. And I think that also connects to the idea that we can feel way more disconnected when we don't feel connected to ourselves. And so whether it's practices and rituals to actually connect deeper to ourselves, that allows us to connect deeper to other people and have meaningful connections with others that help us through those times. I think reconnecting every single day in some way to who you are and having those moments are really important to be able to connect to someone else, to be able to feel understood or valued by other people. And yeah, I think for me, the main one always ends up being prayer, because I'm like, at this point, I can't control anything, so I'm leaving it up to you. But yeah, I would love to hear some of yours.
There's something called the third space theory, and it's this idea that just around 25, 50 years ago, we had three spaces we lived in. We had home, we had work, and then we had church or temple, synagogue, mosque. And what happened is that those three spaces shrunk to two spaces. We went from work to home and home to work. And now we all know that those two places have shrunk into one place.
Yeah.
We work from home and we live at home. And what's happened is not that we've just lost three spaces, but we've lost what that third space provided us. So what happened at church or the community center or a place of gathering was you had a space to look back on work and home and state and everything else and reflect on, how could I be better? What could I do differently? let's figure out together what the solution is. What can we all band to do together? So the biggest challenge today is that we're all feeling the same feeling, but we're feeling it on our own. We're lonely, feeling the same thing. And there's a big difference between being lonely, feeling something, and feeling belonging in feeling something. Wow. And so what I would encourage everyone to do is go and find your third space. Go and find your space of belonging. Go and find your space of connection. Go and find that space where you're with people of equal value, where you can share your heart, when you can hear other people's, when you can open up your mind, where you can carry someone else's burden. I think we've just lost that as a society. And I think these moments are great reminders that we are stronger when we are working together. We are better when we're working together. And ultimately, when we're united and carrying each other's weight, the weight doesn't feel as large. And I think that's the biggest challenge today, is that we're all carrying the weight on our own. And so finding that third space, creating that third space if you don't have it. The third space doesn't have to be 200 people, 2,000 people, 20,000 people. It can literally be 4 people in a room that are reading scripture together, that are starting a book club, that are listening to this podcast and sharing what they learned from you and all your amazing guests that you've had on. It starts that small, and I really feel that we have to create that third space, even because right now our third space is all of us sitting in front of the television. And the TV screen is the third space. The phone screen is the third space. And that third space isn't giving you what the original third space gave you.
Season 2 of My Legacy launches next week. Make sure to follow and subscribe so you don't miss a moment. Coming up, a special sneak peek with Simon Sinek.
What we try to do is really lean into Dr. King's concept of the beloved community, but we find that around connection, and we find that around the idea of fulfillment and leading a fulfilled life. In your opinion, based on your experience, how does one live and lead a fulfilled life?
So I think fulfillment comes from knowing that your life and or your work are contributing to something bigger than yourself. And that is relative to one's own ambitions and goals. You know, somebody who's devoted themselves to parenthood and sees a child flourish and go on to be something bigger than themselves will find that feeling. But coming to work simply to make money, it's exciting at the beginning, but it doesn't contribute to a feeling of lifelong contribution. And this is where vision matters. Vision is an idealized version of the world we want to live in. And when your dad said, I had a dream, he was articulating a world that did not exist, still doesn't exist. It's an ideal state that we strive towards. We'll never get there, but we'll die trying, and that's sort of the point. And all of the markers, all of the progress, all of the waypoints, 3 steps forwards, 2 steps back, 3 steps forwards, are proof that we're getting closer and closer and closer to this idealized state. And that's what leads to a fulfilled life, that I'm making progress to a world that is better than the one we live in now.
One of the themes from the book is about strengthening connections with yourself, with others, the world. But what do you see as the main obstacle to people finding true connection?
I think there's many things that get in the way of us forming true connection. One is, I think we take friends for granted. Everybody knows you have to work hard in marriage. Like, marriage takes work. Everybody knows that. And when marriages have trouble, you get help. You go for therapy. You go for couples therapy. But nobody goes for friends therapy when your friendships are in trouble.
I love that. I've never heard of that.
Nobody thinks that friendships take work. We sort of take them for granted. Like, if you guys have a massive fight, you don't default to divorce. Where in friendships, you have a massive fight and people are like, I don't think I can do this friendship anymore. We're sort of much more disposable about friendships for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe there's no contract. Maybe that's the reason. And if you ask the best couples, like the couples that we look at and admire, and be like, I want a marriage like theirs. And if you ask them, what's your secret? They all say the same thing. It's hard work and we do the work. And I don't know anybody in friendship who says friendship is hard work and we do the work. And so I think one of the reasons we have so much disconnection in the world is we actually are not very good at the skill of being a friend. Would you cancel on a friend for a meeting, or would you cancel on a meeting for a friend? Oh, but my friends would understand. You don't think the people in the meeting would understand? And that's the problem. I think we deprioritize friends almost always, quote unquote, because they'll understand. Yes, we can blame social media. It absolutely is a contributing factor. Yes, we can blame post-lockdown world. It's absolutely a factor. But I think deeper than all of those things is we lack the skills to be a friend. A friend of mine, she and I see the world very differently. She's a conspiracy theorist, and I view the world differently. And she came to visit me in New York, and we were going for a long walk. And she said something that I disagreed with politically or worldview-y. And I definitely thought, and I think I said, how can you be so stupid? And she stops in her tracks and says, you just called your friend stupid. And I realized how judgmental it was to, just because I disagree with someone's worldview, that I think they're dumb. Because on both sides of the political aisle, both sides think the other are the sheeple, And so we were both confronted with the situation of a friend who we both care about and love, which is each other. Now what?
Thank you for joining us. Season 2 launches Tuesday, August 5th with the full conversation from Simon, packed with insight on how to build a real connection, even when it feels impossible, politically and personally. Subscribe now so you don't miss a moment.